What's up, YouTube? Tenchi Arizonia, the angry Dracolope of the Jackalope crew here, and as you can see by the fishing rods behind my chair, today's video is again related to fishing. To be more accurate, it is related to the regulations regarding freshwater fishing in the UK. And this video was requested by one of my subscribers, Jay Hall. So Jay, without further ado, let me get into it, and you may notice that I look off to the left every now and again. That's because I have information pertinent to this video on my computer screen, which is just off camera to the left, over there. Anyway, first things first, fishing licenses. Well, fishing licenses in the UK are broken down into two categories. The main one is your trout and coarse fishing license, and that itself is broken down into two variations. There is the 2-rod variation, which is what most people go for. That costs around £30 a year. In fact, according to the Environment Agency's own site, which is the government entity governing fishing in the UK, £30 a year, dead on the nose, which is around $40, maybe $45, depending on what your exchange rate is. And that's just for 2 rods. That covers most species in the UK, except for 2, which I'll get into in a minute. There is also the 3-rod variation of the coarse and trout license, or as it's listed on the site, trout and coarse, but same fucking thing. It's just how I word it, coarse and trout, because that's the order I use to target species in. And the 3-rod one is £45 a year, around $50, $55, again depending on the exchange rate. And in most areas you will only need the coarse and trout license. However, on some stretches of water it is advisable to also get the salmon and sea trout license, especially during the mid-fishing season in the height of summer. And the salmon and sea trout license will run you £82, which is around $90, $95 if I'm not mistaken, again depending on the exchange rate. Now, in addition to the licensing, which if you get a 3-rod coarse license and a salmon and sea trout license, that will run you £127 a year. And yes, some people do actually spend that much for their licenses because they will end up targeting both species. Me, I specifically went to locations where you would not find salmon or sea trout, so I only ever needed the £45 coarse license, which is the 3-rod license. And my particular loadout for fishing rods was the rod you see by my chair, a ugly stick spinning rod by Shakespeare, very good spinning rod by the way, and a fly rod. I don't have the other two anymore, the fly rod and the ugly stick, which is a big shame because I could also use that for sea fishing. Anyway, that's the licensing. So you need those licenses, but you also need a day permit to fish on most waters. Day permits for fishing on any water can stretch anywhere from £5 all the way up to £100, £150, depending on the venue and the kind of species you are targeting. Also, if you want to take part in freshwater fishing tournaments, again, the permit for doing that can cost around £100, £150, depending on the venue. Some venues are relatively cheap, but there are venues in this country that do average £100 to £150 on day permits. Now that I've got the licensing out of the way, what about catch and keep? And I'm having to look here because I can't remember the list off by heart. But yes, you can catch and keep within the UK. Now, it is legal and there are size limits and such, but for some species it is typically frowned at. I'm not going to go over those just yet. For starters, let's go over what you can keep and what isn't frowned at. Now, you can catch and keep from rivers, and this is per trip, one pike up to 65 centimetres. It's not frowned upon keeping pike, but a lot of people do not keep them because they're not really good eating. Very bony fish, very difficult to prepare. Although that being said, if you do take the time to prepare it properly, and by prepare it properly I mean keep it in a live well to wash out the muddy flavour through the system of the meat, through the system of fish and the meat, should I say. You would need to keep it in a live well a couple of days just to wash the muddiness out of its system. But yeah, it's very bony. Skin though is pretty useful. You can actually turn the skin into a leather to make wallets and stuff out of. As I said, pike is not frowned upon. You can keep 2 grayling, 30 to 38 centimetres, so 12 to 13 inches, if I'm not mistaken. That is frowned upon. It is legal, yes, but it is frowned upon because of how beautiful the fish is and because of how good of a fight it puts up, especially when caught on light tackle. So yes, you can keep them, but it's a species that's frowned upon. So if you do intend to keep them, make sure there's no other anglers around you because, yeah, you'll get the stink eye for that. And you can keep 15 small fish up to 20 centimetres, including barbel, chub, common bream, common carp, crucian carp, dace, perch, rudd, silver bream, roach, smelt, and tench. Right, now this is where the problems come in, because most of those species are actually frowned upon to keep, even though it's completely legal. Tench, crucian carp, perch, silver bream, common bream, barbel, and common carp are all frowned upon to keep. You can do it. Anglers don't like it when you do, though. Chub and barbel. Chub, yeah, you can keep that. There's not really any frowned upon thing about that because it's considered a nuisance fish in some areas. But generally, it is frowned upon. And any eels you keep except conger eels, which you're not going to be catching in freshwater anyway, must be released alive. Now, this is kind of a contradiction here because I'm sure you've all heard that the UK has stuff like jellied eels, eel pies, and they're generally made out of freshwater eels. And in fact, on some stretches of river, people make a lot of money poaching eels because you're supposed to put them back. Anyway, you can also take minor or tiddler species, such as gudgeon, non-native species, such as signal crayfish, they're not native to the UK, and ornamental varieties of native species like ghost or koi carp. Well, I'm going to correct that statement right there. Although they say you can keep them, it is extremely, extremely frowned upon, not just by anglers, but by pretty much fucking anyone to keep, for the purposes of cooking, a ghost or koi carp. And that's what this list is for. It's catch and cook list, what you can keep to cook, basically. You can also keep rainbow trout and brown trout. Obviously, they're not frowned upon at all, and they are covered by the coarse and trout license, which is the £45 one if you go for the 3 rod, £30 for the 2 rod variation. Then you have salmon and trout, and specifically salmon and trout, it's local bylaws. So, well, put it this way, rainbow trout and brown trout are covered by the coarse license, but it is down to the individual fishery whether they allow you to keep or whether they have a catch and release policy. Most of the fisheries in my area, most of the stretches of river in my area have a catch and cook policy and a catch and release policy. The only thing is, again, minimum size limits, which is 36 centimetres for rainbow trout and brown trout. To keep salmon and sea trout, you will require a salmon and sea trout license, and you have to make a note of your catch regardless of whether you keep or release it. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful, Jay. There is more intricacies I could get into, but I really don't want to, because otherwise this would be a massively long video. And quite honestly, some of them are not pertinent for visiting anglers. So, hopefully you enjoyed this video. As usual, that's all for now. If you like it, please subscribe, comment and share. And remember, be good to each other.